And next up at PFL Madrid, we've got Mark Ewen taking on Gino van Steenis. Carlos, who you got in this one?
In this one, I'm going to go with Van Steenis to get this one done. I think Ewing and Van Steenis are both. I think they're both very technical fighters. I think they're both good standing and on the mat. I think basically it comes down to who's physically going to be imposing in the cage, and I feel that Van Steenis is. I feel that just him, like if you think of his brother up at 85, some of the things that make him a big 85er, he's got big shoulders and a wide back. That's exactly what Van Steenis has, and it's a problem to control him, to get him to the ground. I think Ewan, if he wants to implement some ground game and take them down, I think he's going to have a little bit of an issue. And I also think that Van Steenis is the harder puncher out of the two, the harder striker. Is he the more technical? It's like they're both pretty technical, but I think Ewan's strikes actually look sharper. They come down the middle. There's not a lot of fat on it, and they don't loop. I think that Van Steenis, as the fight goes on, some of his fights, even the straights, tend to come out a little looping. So I'm going to take Van Steenis. I think he's going to bully Ewing around in the ring, and I think he's going to get it done.
Yeah, two for Van Steenis here. I do like Mark Ewing. I think he's a nice addition into the PFL. I think he's a decent fighter. He's very methodical in the way that he fights. He's got decent kickboxing. Everything's measured. Everything's with a purpose. I do think at times, though, he can be a little bit overwhelmed. And when you look at some of his fights, guys come out very aggressive. You know, he gets his back taken or he gets taken down and he has to kind of wake up a little bit. I don't want to call him a slow starter, but I think you can kind of pressure him a little bit and kind of get him a little bit flustered early. And I do like his overall skill set. He is nice front chokes. He's got some nice submissions and a nice ground game overall. But I think realistically here, Van Steenis is a little bit too athletic, a little bit faster than him, a little bit bigger, as Carlos mentioned. Van Steenis is a guy that utilizes kicks very well. He uses that lead oblique kick, which is an underused tool, in my opinion. Whether you love it or hate it, at the end of the day, it's still a part of the sport and it's still utilized well by Van Steenis. He does a good job of coming upstairs with the head kicks. I think he has a nice step-in jab where he really steps into it with his lead leg. And I think here, realistically, he can kind of touch Ewan on the feet with a speed advantage here that Ewan's just going to be looking to counter. And don't get me wrong, Ewan can definitely crack. He's definitely a guy that can get the finish. But I think Van Steenis can kind of overwhelm him early here on the feet. And I think if he decides to mix in some grappling, it's going to open up some opportunities here for Ewan. He has, like I mentioned, a nice dart, a nice front choke. I wouldn't be surprised here if he does pull off the upset with some sort of submission as Van Steenis gets a little bit tired here late in the second or third round. But I think if Van Steenis keeps this one on the feet, he can have a lot more success with that lead jab, mixing in some of those athletic strikes and those sort of heavy kicks, and ultimately frustrate Ewan on the feet and really just win a very clear decision in terms of the speed and athleticism that he possesses on the feet. So give me Van Steenis here to get this one done, but I wouldn't be surprised if Mark Ewen pulls off the upset if Van Steenis decides to mix in some grappling.